So if you're a natural athlete trying to build as much muscle as possible, or you're someone trying to lose as much fat as possible, you need to watch this video on leg training because it's going to turn everything you know about leg day upside down. And if you're someone who skips leg day, you need to watch this video as well, as everything I'm going to talk about here is based on 3 decades worth of observations and all designed to help you get the most out of your workouts. So let's get right into it. So we always hear how important it is to never skip leg day. But a lot of men out there only want impressive upper bodies, and that's all they train, and they get it. So how do you really prove that leg day is so important? And the only way to know for sure, regardless of what any fitness influencer says, is through A/B testing, which no one ever does. But you're in luck because here's the deal. I was able to train a group of men who only trained their legs and was able to compare them to a group of individuals who always skipped leg day over the course of a year. That's right. Group A were a group of men who were only training their legs, and Group B were a group of men who never did any kind of leg workout at all and only trained upper body. And the results completely shocked me and are going to completely surprise you and change everything about how you think about leg day and training legs in general. So I train with something called naturally intense, high intensity training, a series of workouts that last only 10, 15, and over 20 minutes max, done just 3 times a week. And I was able to realize that my goal to become a successful natural bodybuilding champion, 100% drug-free using this method. And I've been doing it now for the past 34 years. At 51 years old, I still look like this. And because the workouts are so short, I have been able to train over 1,000 men and women over the past 3 decades plus. And I've always taken meticulous notes of my progress and the progress of my clients over the years. And I've always believed that to whom much is given, much is expected. So I try to share as much as possible because I have so many individuals in front of me with this particular training system, and it gives me the opportunity to see for myself with real life experience and a large number of individuals over the course of years of things like what happens when someone skips leg day compared to those individuals who only train their legs. And like I said, the results are going to completely astound you. Now, I'm a pretty established personal trainer at this point. So if someone came to me and said that they did not want to do legs, I would tell them very frankly that you cannot train with us. And after you finish watching this video, you'll understand exactly why. And so for the first 2 or 3 years of my career, I had a number of men, always men because women in general tend to love training legs. And I thought to myself, well, they don't want to do a leg workout. What harm could it be? At least they're still working out and they're still doing something. But interestingly enough, back when I started doing personal training and I started getting into bodybuilding as well, there was this prevailing idea for a lot of athletes that if you did any kind of weightlifting, it would make you big and bulky and slow you down, which of course is completely false. And almost every athlete in every sport today lifts weights to improve their performance. But back then things were different. And what happened was I came across a bunch of soccer players. We call them football players where I come from back in Trinidad. And they were absolutely against the idea of doing any kind of upper body training whatsoever. They only wanted to train their legs. And again, as a personal trainer starting off with a very radical routine with 10-minute workouts, I didn't feel again like I was the one who should be calling the shots. So if they only wanted to train their legs, then they were only going to train their legs. But in keeping with the naturally intense, high intensity training principles, because the workouts are so blisteringly intense, I only allowed them to train their legs once a week. So they were seeing me once a week training their legs. Now, comparing that with the individuals who simply did not like leg training, absolutely did not like it. And we all know someone out there who doesn't like training legs and never train legs and only trains their upper body. So I had people back in the day who would come in and say, I don't want any leg training, especially after they saw a naturally intense, high intensity training workout for legs, which is extremely blisteringly intense. And trust me, after a leg day with us, you're going to be sore for at least 3 to 4 days minimum. And a lot of guys, I guess understandably, don't want to deal with that much pain and that much stress. And they're also focused on the idea of just building their chest and their arms and their shoulders and their back. Not too much concern about their lower body. And what they would do with me is they would train back and shoulders on day 1. And then on day 2, they train chest, arms, abdominals. And they would only train with me twice a week. Now, if you know anything about naturally intense, high intensity training, you'd know that we always put everything into a 3-day workout. Our standard workout split is legs on day 1, back and shoulders on day 2, chest, arms, and abdominals on day 3. As this 3-day split is what I found to be the most effective for building muscle mass, losing body fat, and really getting the most out of a high intensity workout, because it gives you enough time to recover between the workouts and really make some truly impressive gains as a natural athlete. But many of them wanted to train more than twice a week because their idea was, well, because we're skipping the leg workout, we should be doing an extra day for upper body, which I always advised against, because I already knew from firsthand experience that it is impossible to maintain the type of intensity required for our workouts if you're training any muscle group more than once a week. And you can learn more about my findings about training 3 times a week for natural athletes right here in this video. So they were doing their training just twice a week, doing upper body workouts. And then on the other side of the spectrum, like I said, you had those athletes coming in who didn't want to do any upper body training whatsoever. And then as time went on, when I had clients who could only come in once a week, sometimes with some of them, I experimented and I would have them come in once a week and they would only do legs because they were focused not so much on building muscle mass. They're thinking about losing body fat. I'll talk about the body fat connection with leg workouts as we go along in the video as well. So stay tuned for that. And since your legs are, without question, the biggest group of muscles in your body, you expend the most energy and calories by doing a leg workout. And you also expend the most calories after a workout with something called EPOC, whereby the amount of oxygen your body uses and the amount of calories and energy your body uses to recover from the workout is significant, something which people usually call the afterburn effect. And because of the amount of damage that's done to your muscles during a high-intensity leg workout, to repair those muscles and to get everything back to normal requires energy. So it made sense to me over the years that people coming in whose focus was on weight loss and only want to train and were only able to train 1 day a week, it makes sense for them just to do legs, which gave us significantly more people to put into our comparison to get a large number of individuals to be able to compare. And now let's take a look at the results from Group A who were only training upper body. As you would expect, those men who were only training their upper body, they did experience significant increase in their upper body musculature. Their arms got bigger, their chests got bigger, their shoulders got bigger, their backs got bigger. No surprise there. They were training with exceptionally high intensity workouts, and they were also following a diet that I prescribed to them. Most of them really were following their diet, and they were really doing well in terms of building muscle. But when I looked at my notes, there was something a little bit off. And it was only when I started looking at the group of men who were only training their legs that it started to make some sense. See, here's what I found with the group of men who were only training legs. Yes, of course, their legs got bigger and stronger, significantly so. But something else was happening. Their upper bodies got bigger, even though they were only training their legs. I know it sounds completely strange, but many of these individuals I knew for a fact were not doing any weight training outside of what they were doing with me, period, and would never even think of touching a weight because, like I said, they were athletes and were reluctant to do legs in the first place for fear of getting bulky. And yet their upper bodies got bigger. Now, nowhere as big as those who were training upper body only. Let's be very clear about this. But it did put some size on their chests, their arms, their back, and their shoulders, which to me, when I first noticed it, was completely fascinating. But I also thought many of these men who were training legs alone were athletes. They were probably doing things like push-ups and calisthenics. So maybe the combination of the weight training plus the bodyweight exercises they were doing with the training was perhaps making their upper body stronger, which I thought could probably be the explanation as to why it is that their upper body is getting bigger. But I was able to completely rule that out with the very large number of men over the course of 3 decades who only trained once a week doing legs, because all of those men who were not focused whatsoever on weight training, they were really focused on fat loss. They all got really great leg development, obviously, from that kind of training, but they also would talk about the fact that they were losing body fat and they really liked the way their upper bodies look. Now, again, like I said, there's no comparison to the upper body development of those men who were only training legs to those who were training upper body alone. But they did put some size on, and I knew for a fact with all these men who were coming in that they weren't doing anything else. So the reason why their upper bodies were growing was because of the leg workouts that they were doing. Now, when you're doing a leg workout, a compound exercise like a squat, for example, puts a lot of stress on your upper body. So do exercises like stiff leg deadlifts and any exercise like lunges, for example, where you're holding the weights in your hand. Your upper body is always going to be working. But what I think is really important to note is the fact that here in the West, we tend to compartmentalize muscles, especially with things like bodybuilding. We think in terms of chest and arms, back and shoulders, which is convenient when you're designing a weight training routine or trying to figure out what you should train today. But we don't think of it in terms of the body as a whole. Because here's the deal. If you do a really intense leg workout, 9, 10, you're not only going to have a localized effect. Yes, muscles get bigger and stronger from unaccustomed stimulus that causes a muscle breakdown. Then those muscles that have been damaged send signals, and your brain starts a cascade of adaptive processes to make those muscles bigger than they were and stronger than they were in order to better perform that activity that caused the muscle breakdown in the first place. Because muscles getting bigger and stronger is a survival-based adaptation. And for this to happen, there's also an increase in growth hormone, testosterone, and other hormones responsible for muscle growth. Now, these hormones aren't localized. Your legs are very big muscles. And if your body goes through that much trauma whereby it says that we have to repair everything, the increase in testosterone, well, it's in your entire body. And when you're doing a leg workout, you're also using your entire body. Anyone who's ever been injured, even if you had a shoulder injury or a back injury and try to train legs, you start realizing just how much those muscles sometimes can be engaged during regular leg workouts. And we won't even talk about how involved your abs and lower back muscles are during any kind of leg workouts. But going back to the whole body concept, that hormonal release to make muscles bigger and stronger is directly proportional to the size of the muscle being worked. For example, if you do a leg workout and measured increases in testosterone and growth hormone afterwards, you would probably see that after a bicep workout, a chest workout, a shoulder workout, a back workout, although back is a pretty big muscle, the hormonal response is going to be directly proportional to the size of the muscle worked. Therefore, it makes perfect sense that a leg workout would stimulate growth in the entire body. Now, going back to the fact that those men who only trained upper body did have some very impressive upper bodies, but they did not, on average, have the same development compared to those who also trained upper body and did legs. I'll say it again. Men who only trained back, shoulders, chest, and arms did not have, on average, the same amount of muscle growth compared to those training 3 days a week and training their legs. And they also had outstanding leg development, which means that if you're not training your legs and you're really focused on getting bigger arms, bigger chest, bigger shoulders, and bigger back, and you're a natural athlete, you are leaving something on the table. Now remember, as a natural athlete, we don't have the benefit of steroids that are going to make us grow no matter what. You have to do everything right, utilizing every possible way to increase your muscle mass naturally. And one very important way to do that is to experience the large cascade of hormones released from a high intensity leg workout, because it will always be more than if you're only training your body. So it makes perfect sense why you should train legs, and also highlights the reason why I always have my clients do legs first in the week, just in case they're not going to make it the rest of the week, as training legs is so important. And so right there, just a building muscle, we have a huge reason why you should be training your legs, but there's even more. Over the years, I've had many clients who were unable to train legs temporarily in most cases because of the fact they had a health issue or were recovering from some form of surgery. And again, like I said, I've always taken meticulous notes of my clients to see exactly what their progress is over time, to try to always find what the patterns are to make the training as effective as humanly possible. And what I found over the years, not once, but consistently with all of my clients who had to stop training legs or who were unable to train legs, they did not lose body fat anywhere nearly as fast or as much as those who were training legs. I'll say it again. Those who were not training legs did not lose the same amount of body fat compared to those who were training legs, even though they were following comparative diets, and they were very much strict with their diets as well. And what reinforced this to me was that they started losing far more body fat once they started back training legs. And this was always significant enough that it wasn't something I found out from looking at my notes. My clients were very much aware from their experience of the fact that there was a big difference between when they were training legs in terms of how much body fat they were losing and how much that process stalled when they stopped training legs, and how much their body fat started going back down the second they started back training legs. Now, that being said, some might think, well, instead of training 3 days a week, maybe you should do legs twice a week in order to get the most in terms of losing body fat and building muscle mass, which we have tried. Like I've said in other videos, it doesn't work. More is not necessarily better, especially when it comes to leg workouts. Always a testament to how important recovery is, because putting in that extra day, especially a leg workout, consistently causes a drastic reduction in overall muscle building, and over time, clients are seeing a decrease in overall performance with no increase whatsoever in fat loss. So, like so many systems with training legs, there's also the law of diminishing returns to be considered, in that if you do too much of it, it can be detrimental. And with this particular form of training, naturally intense, high-intensity training, we can only train legs once per week to get the most benefit. I hope this video gives you some perspective about how important leg training is if you want to really maximize your upper body mass. Over the course of my natural bodybuilding career, I have never skipped leg day. In fact, I would even say that the mental toughness required to build really impressive arms and a really impressive upper body comes from leg day as well. When you're training leg, the degree of mental fortitude you have to develop over the years in order to really train your legs hard is something that transfers over to all your muscle groups as well. It's going to make you train your arms harder, your chest harder, your shoulders harder, your back harder. I can't say just how important it is to make sure you always get that leg workout in, as it's going to be key to you realizing your full natural bodybuilding potential. And to learn more about naturally intense leg workouts, make sure you check this video out over here. So if you know someone out there who always skips legs, make sure you send them this video. Trust me, they're going to thank you. And if you want a great upper body and you also want to lose body fat as well, make sure you don't skip legs. Thanks for watching. Know I believe in you, and as always, Excelsior.